Right, we've got lots of people starting to join us. I'm gonna give us about 30 seconds or so to let everybody get online and get settled. So welcome, we'll start in just a moment. Afternoon, everybody. I've still got 1:30 straight up on my clock, so I'm just going to give a couple more seconds to all the people that like to be right on time so that they don't miss anything. All right, well, welcome attendees and good afternoon. I know we've had all kinds of fun Zoom activity throughout the day today, so I'm very excited to virtually see all of you. Here's a little bit of our agenda for today. This is our first of a series of webinar programs that we're launching to add member and community value out of AED's offices. So I'm really excited that I think we had a total of more than 90 registrants for the program today. So we're excited for everybody to tune in and check out this wonderful content and program. For anybody that doesn't know me, and I've kind of been out on the circuit lately, so I think you do know me at this point. For anybody that doesn't know me, and I am Danielle Casey, the president of AED, and the new president and CEO of AED. So thrilled to be here. Before we get things going, I have just a couple of quick housekeeping notes for everybody. We are recording this webinar just to make our speakers nervous. No, just kidding, because it's wonderful content. We want to record it so that we can share it with attendees later that maybe missed a portion or want to follow up on some of the details. So we will be sending a post-webinar survey out, and it will include a link to the recording. Give us up to 48 hours on that. If you have technical issues, something goes wonky, you can't figure it out, please use the chat function, and Elena on our team is going to be ready in the wings to help and answer any questions there. If you have questions for speakers, please use our Q&A tool, where we're going to be tracking that Q&A function. And if for any reason we don't get to all the questions today, we'll be able to then follow up on questions and get those answered post-program. So now, I'm going to get this show started. We have two fantastic guest speakers today. So first, to provide a brief overview on the Albuquerque Sunport Master Plan, as well as some high-level trend data on air travel and maybe even some possible future light at the end of the tunnel. I couldn't think of a good aviation related comment there. It's Patrick Taylor of Kaufman Associates. And I've actually throughout my career had the opportunity to work with Kaufman in different markets. So it's really fun for me when I realized that they also worked on the master plan for our airport. It was a wonderful connection. Patrick has nearly 20 years of experience in all aspects of airport master planning, including aviation demand forecasting, airport financial analysis, alternative development evaluation, and needs analysis. So a lot of words, but what it means is he's worked on airport feasibility studies and site selection studies extensively. He has valuable recent experience providing airport planning services in the FAA Southwest region and the FAA Northwest Mountain region. Prior to joining the firm, Patrick spent 10 successful years in sales and marketing in the technology industry, including 2 years with a large international engineering firm. So good afternoon, Patrick, take it away.
Great, Danielle, thanks. Happy to be here. As Danielle said, I'm Patrick Taylor with Kaufman Associates. So we're a national airport planning firm, and we were the lead consulting firm on the recently completed master plan for the Sunport. which was finished up early in 2020, in fact, in March of 2020. Thought I'd just cover a few bullet points here about the master plan and the master planning process. So airports periodically update their master plan. FAA likes them to be updated about every 7 to 10 years or so. And a master plan for an airport is about a 20-year planning horizon. Look at the airport and the potential growth. One of the major outputs of a master plan is a list of capital improvement projects. So what types of things based on demand might the airport need over the course of the next 20 years? The master plan positions airports to request grant funding for those projects that have been identified. And the master plan provides a flexible long-term vision for the airport. The projects that are identified in the master plan are phased based on priority. So we typically break it up into kind of short term, a 5-year time frame, and an intermediate term, another 5 years, and then a long term, kind of that years 10 through 20 time frame. The CIP for the Sunport had 41 different projects and a capital program of about $125 million. And the plan itself identifies both aeronautical needs, so the runways and the taxiway systems, as well as potential non-aeronautical land uses. And the word enplanements, which is passengers boarding an airplane, is a key metric for FAA, and it leads directly to various entitlement and passenger facility funding sources. So those are FAA funding sources from the Airport Improvement Program that is allocated by Congress each year. In 2019, a great year for the airport, there were about 2.63 million enplanements, so double that for the number of passengers that passed through the airport. And then of course in 2020 with COVID, enplanements have been down across the country. Of course, Albuquerque was particularly hit, dropping about 70% or so. Nationally, it's been about 60%. Recent FAA forecasts are kind of targeting about a 5-year trend line to turn that trend around and get back to those 2019 levels. And to assist airports who've been hurt a lot, there's been several congressional acts providing money for airports, including the CARES Act, of which the Sunport got about 20 million. And there's some other resources as well to help airports kind of survive. Next slide. So this has got a little bit of a blur to it. I apologize that, but this is the phasing exhibit from the master plan. So everything that's kind of marked up in red is short-term projects, so things that we anticipated being needed within the first 5 years. Yellow is kind of intermediate term projects, and long-term projects are those outer years, 10 through 20. And again, these are all capital projects that would be eligible for FAA funding. A lot of it has to do with pavement maintenance, pavement repair. Some of it has to do with bringing certain taxiways and seven down there in the lower left corner. That's an expansion of the cargo apron, and the Sunport is expanding in that area in particular. And we go to the next slide. And then I also mentioned the land uses on the airport that may not be needed for aeronautical needs. So these are non-aviation kind of land leases for revenue support purposes. And several areas were identified in the master plan and have been on the books for a while. The number one area in yellow there is the Aviation Center of Excellence. And when we were doing the master plan, there was a little bit of a different vision for it. And there's an outstanding opportunity right now that I know that Nyika is going to talk about in some detail. So I won't spoil a surprise there. But that's an exciting opportunity for the airport. There's also some property in the southwest corner of the Sunport Business and Technology Center, where there's at least 2 businesses right now. And the master plan kind of showed a parcel layout to potentially introduce additional businesses there as well. I got one more slide, I think. This is one of the technical drawings from the master plan. It's the land use plan. And was kind of the best presentation of this whole area in the southwest of the airport, where it's just listed as open space. But this is a large area that could potentially be warehousing or manufacturing or something like that, that could also assist in providing revenue to the airport. So I'll be around for questions afterwards, maybe Danielle.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick. Absolutely. He's going to stick around for all those fun technical questions that I'm sure you all have. All right. But now for today's headliner, I'm super thrilled. And even in this world of COVID, obviously quite appropriately socially distanced, I had the opportunity, fully masked, to get a tour of the Sunport by Nyika Allen, and it was just amazing. So I'm thrilled to introduce her as well, because she's the first woman to serve as director of the Department of Aviation for the city of Albuquerque. Ms. Allen is responsible for management oversight of the largest airport in New Mexico, no small feat, right? As well as Double Eagle II, the General Aviation Reliever Airport. So this includes the airport's annual operating budget and multi-year capital program. So a lot of numbers there to figure out, ton of responsibility. She's a founding member of the New Mexico Land of Enchantment chapter of Women in Aviation International. Very, very cool. Under her leadership, ABQ has expanded its route portfolio, completed a $30 million terminal renovation, taxiway reconstruction. They've added new streamlined exit doors, a nursing room, and a pet relief area, which I think is pretty darn cool because I am a bulldog owner. Although Sophie's definitely not allowed on a plane. She's far too rude. Ms. Allen has led to the effort to partner with the electric utility to perform major upgrades to the electrical infrastructure, negotiated a water reuse contract with the Water Authority to save millions of gallons of potable water per month, and was also awarded funds to purchase electric passenger buses and charging stations. Wow. According to the most recent economic impact study, ABQ and AEG generate 2.25 billion with a B annually in economic impact to the region. So she's going to tell you all kinds of additional stuff. So with that, Nyika.
Danielle, thank you so much for having me today. Thank you all for coming to listen. I'm excited. There's nothing I'm more excited about actually other than our airport. So I just love telling people about what we're doing. And we're going to go through a few different things today. We're going to talk a little bit about Airport 101. I never quite know how much people actually understand about the airport in general and about what we do. I always have people ask me, so what does a director of aviation actually do? So we're going to go over that a little bit. Then we're going to talk about CARES funding and our airport financial health. I'm sure you're all wondering about that right now. How we've handled COVID, some of our pivoting and recovery that we've been doing recently, upcoming development plans and opportunities, and then some general trends. So the airport, basically my job is to be a giant landlord in some regard. We have multiple partners that live with us here at the airport, and we have multiple partners that also help to govern airports. So the first and kind of main partner that we have is the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. They govern all of our dollars. They are the ones that actually give us grant monies. They also work with us to provide safety on the airfield. They help us to understand a lot of the work that Patrick just did, master planning. That's an FAA governed document. A group that you all are probably familiar with is the Transportation Security Administration, TSA. You most know them through the checkpoint where you get screened to come to the other side. TSA was born right after 9/11, but they additionally are our security auditor overall, and they make sure that we maintain security standards that are the same all across the United States so that we can count on them. We also have Customs and Border Protection. While we don't currently have any international commercial flights at the Sunport, we do always have international private flights, and we are actually, the Port of Albuquerque is headquartered at the Sunport. So they're also a very important partner to us. Then we have some partners that you guys will recognize as well that are not on the government side. We have our airline partners, our concessionaires, the ones that sell food and beverage and retail, and then our rental car partners. We actually manage 250 active leases and contracts at the Sunport, and we basically, as the local government entity, we're kind of the glue that brings everyone together. And you can see those airlines that we have there. Those are the airlines that we currently have at the Sunport, commercial carriers. These are our destinations. This is our destination map. We were looking pretty robust in 2019. The map definitely has changed, but this is kind of a goal of where we should get back to, we're hoping. And of course, we want to continue to grow that route portfolio as well. I want to talk a little bit about the uniqueness of an airport in a local government agency. We are a little bit different than other city entities. We actually operate as an enterprise fund, which is basically a self-supporting government fund. We have to make and spend all of our own money. So all of the revenues that we bring in is actually driven by the airlines, by our passengers. Patrick, I think, talked a little bit about PFC funding, other types of funding that we get, and grant monies. And so no general fund dollars and no local taxpayer dollars actually come into the airport to support us. And so we can't additionally support the rest of the city. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our economic impact. As Danielle mentioned, in 2019, we did a new economic impact study, and that study concluded that we are actually responsible for over $2 billion in economic output and nearly 20,000 jobs across the state. And so that, as you can see, it's not just direct airport jobs, but we support a lot of other jobs, construction and other things. But we have 3,000 employees total at the Sunport, a little different now here in 2020, 2021, but that was our 2019 numbers. And I have about 300 city employees that work under my purview at the aviation department. By the numbers, we're going to talk a little bit about, of course, how things have shifted over the last, 12 months now, and even less than that. In 2019, we were at kind of an all-time high for the Sunport. Previously, there was a right amendment, and that right amendment actually forced Southwest, when they opened Dallas Love Field, to stop in stations and other airports right in the next state over. So we had basically inflated numbers when the right amendment was present. That right amendment sunsetted. And so we then immediately dropped a lot of passenger numbers. So people had seen a pretty dramatic decline in our passenger numbers, probably between 2008 and 2016. But actually from 2016 to 2019, we started growing again. We actually had our rightful demand in New Mexico. And so we actually saw our growth come back quite a bit in those last 3 years, to up 12% over 3 years. And we were about $69 million in total revenue per year, which was great. And that would go, of course, both into the capital fund and to pay our yearly operating expenses. Now in 2020, it was looking a little bit different. We had 66% decline year over year in our passenger account. So we only had 1.8 million passengers. And when I'm talking about passengers here, we're talking about one for going and one for coming. So both arriving and leaving passengers. And then of course, our revenue decline additionally was significant. At 38%, we only had about $43 million in total revenue last year. We do, because we are much more like a landlord, we do get to maintain some of those costs, which was very lucky for us. We didn't just lose all of our revenue because no one was traveling, but definitely you can see there that about 38% of it is due to passenger decline and how that directly ties to our revenues. So COVID, as I just said, we actually only had about 66% decline year over year. However, we also had basically a quarter of good normal months from January through March of last year. That was pretty much normal. And so, but at the height of the pandemic, probably in April, we were at 98% of where we should be. It was a complete ghost town at the airport. It was very scary. I talked to, many of my employees, and they said they hadn't seen anything like that since 9/11. So it was a bit of like another 9/11 resurgence for us, but also in a very, very different way, because of course, as we all know, it impacted all of us differently, and it's impacted the economy very differently than something like 9/11 did. So we immediately went into what I call an emergency mode. We halted all of our marketing campaigns. we were trying to keep up with everything that was going on. Airline operations were changing daily. It was very hard to keep up with them. They still are to this day. And of course, all of our partners really needed relief, like local businesses all across the state that had their business substantially cut. Our airport partners had their businesses substantially cut as well. And so we needed to do whatever we could to try to help them survive and get through this time. But the whole time, one of the most important things I like to mention was that shutting down was just not an option for us. We needed to remain open, and we were there and available for some very important things. So our financial health, luckily, I believe it was about May or so of last year, 2020, in which the first round of CARES funding came out and was available to airports and airlines, in addition to others across the country. We were lucky enough to receive about $19.7 million. There's calculations, of course, of how the FAA figured out how much each of us deserved. But that definitely, that money will help. Well, you can see actually in our numbers, we declined, 60 something, 38% decline in our total revenues. And so actually this amount of money will not make up by any means the loss that we've seen in our financial revenues, but it will help kind of maintain us. We also are very lucky. We've had people that are very fiscally responsible running the airport long before myself. And so we actually came into this with minimal debt and in a position to actually be debt free by 2023, assuming that we don't have to take on any new debt because of this crisis. So I do want to assure everyone, we are in a strong financial position to recover. And of course, we're going to continue to monitor that and make updates as needed. These are just some pictures that I like to show what a stark contrast it is to a busy, bustling, fun airport. Absolutely no one in the terminal at the end of March there. Just very interesting. And it was kind of an interesting time. We could highlight some of the new improvements that we did, which was great, but no one using it is definitely not so fun. So talk a little bit about nationwide, what happened. And I just pulled the traveler throughput for last Thursday. And so you can see it's actually fluctuates very much right now. Some weeks we're up, some weeks we're down nationally. Certainly depends on, how COVID is plaguing our nation, how many cases we have, new rules and restrictions that are put across the country. So actually between the week before and last week on Thursday, we were actually still down 2%, had only about 800,000 people traveling. And the same time last year was over 2 million passengers. So that's a 64% decline. And that's kind of the decline that we are seeing pretty normally now. We've been watching this trend for quite a few months, and that's where the US as a whole is hitting about 64%. One of the benefits to flying during COVID times is that your average TSA wait times are very short, less than 2 minutes, which of course we maintain here in New Mexico as well. We have one of the best TSAs and security checkpoints in the country, so we're always getting people in and out quickly. But now, no matter where you're going, you can get less than 2 minutes waiting in that line. Little about the Sunport specifically. So we also saw a bit of a decline week over week. We went from almost 2,000 passengers to about 1,900. And more importantly, I want to point you to how we're looking compared to the rest of the country. Our change year over year is more like 73% decline. So we have been seeing this as well throughout the last few months that we've been monitoring it. We are about 10% higher in our decline than the national average. And of course, that's due to many different things, depending on the number of regulations that your state has in place. We have a 14-day quarantine for all travelers right now. So certainly things like that do impact our numbers. But that's just an interesting point to mention. So a few things that we've learned about COVID and kind of what it looks like at the airport right now. Originally, our conservative estimates weren't really conservative enough. I think when we all thought that, saw COVID coming and plaguing our country, we thought, okay, maybe we'll get out of this in 3 months. Maybe we'll get out of this in 6 months. And here we are, I think 10 months later, almost 11 months later, and we're pretty much still in the same place. So we did reestimate, of course, throughout the year, and now we're on track, but it definitely has been detrimental to our aviation economy. Another thing that everyone is going to notice is that our direct flights have severely been impacted. We see less direct flights now than last year, both in new locations, unique locations, and in the frequency that we're seeing. So that's unfortunate. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We've also had 2 of our rental car partners file for bankruptcy. One of them is not even operating at the Sunport anymore. Out of 25 food and retail locations, only 7 are currently operating, and it does somewhat depend on the day that you come. And 2 of those locations have also permanently closed. We've been working with all of our partners at the Sunport to make sure that we reduce their operating hours to only what is definitely necessary so that they can save some of the costs that it costs to operate these facilities. And we're doing the best that we can to help them out. So we've done a lot to pivot and recover and make sure that traveling is as safe as humanly possible. So we brought in a lot of enhanced cleaning to the airport, and we actually worked with a local company to engage an autonomous disinfectant robot that actually comes and fogs and disinfects the airport every single night. So that has really helped to keep all of the viral load that you may normally see down. It cleans both the air and surfaces. So we've been happy to be able to offer that. We also have really changed our messaging. Usually we're talking about all of our new flights and very exciting things for the Sunport, but we're focused on our recovery messaging, communicating the new travel experience and the changes that everyone will see, and also really tried to focus on positive messaging. And we came up with 2 distinct campaigns during this time. We didn't want to really encourage people to travel, of course, but we wanted to let people know that we're ready when you're ready. And also, of course, a little bit of nostalgia. I think if I'm probably not alone in this, I'd love to go on a vacation right now. I'm dreaming of a beach destination. So if you're dreaming of your next adventure, we are too. And of course, we've been out and about. Hopefully you guys have heard us a little bit on the radio and on social, and I'll show you some of the advertising and social that we've done next. So here are some of the advertisements that we've had out, really focus on safety. We want to showcase what we've been doing, how we're cleaning, social distancing stickers, sneeze guards, things like that. Of course, I know any of you that own public facilities and are managing them probably have similar practices, or even just facilities where you have the public come in. So you're all doing the same thing, and we're just working hard to keep everyone safe. We also, you can see some of our social media. I hope you guys all follow us on social media. And if you don't yet, you should now. We've been celebrating healthcare workers throughout the year. We've been really talking about masks, and of course, just trying to keep things as positive as we can. Here's also some of our advertising, just a little bit more of that, the same idea. When you're ready, we're ready for you. And again, not pushing people to come back, but want to know, let people know that it's safe. All right. So we, of course, going back to our financial situation, we are down by about $30 million or so this year. And so it definitely was important for us to focus on what we call non-aeronautical revenue opportunities. And when we talk about non-aeronautical, if it's aeronautical related, that means it comes directly from the act of flying. So it's an airline dollar, or it's coming from a passenger directly. So we're looking at all kinds of other opportunities to make money, because no one's going to pay my bills except for me here at the airport. We are actively recruiting businesses for development and leasing opportunities. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. And I'm sure you guys have heard about some of the work that we're doing. We actually are doing quite well as well at leasing our buildings. We are predicting to be at 100% occupancy by the end of this year. I have a great team of business development team that's just kicking butt and taking names. And so it's always fun to see that, we'll be completely out of space, but I guess we'll have to build some more. We also did something pretty unique across the country. Airports often use interim advertising providers to fulfill the advertising program at an airport and to actually sell ads. We decided to take that program in under our own wing and do it in-house. And that's really allowed us to bring in 100% of the revenue from our advertisers. And so if you're interested in advertising at the Sunport, we'd love to bring you in as a client. But we're definitely trying to make sure that we keep all of the money that we possibly can and not kind of be giving that out to other organizations, especially ones out of the state. We've also found some new concession opportunities. We found opportunities in Wi-Fi, data, cellular. Not sure if y'all have ever been on your cell phone at the Sunport. It's not always that good. We don't have great connections. So there's opportunities for people to come in and improve that and actually pay us a fee to do that. So we're excited about that. And then one thing, I'm sure many of you have not been to the airport this year, but we've really had a renewed focus on asset management and preventive maintenance. There's a lot of things, when you have 5 million people traveling a year through the airport, anything that you're doing construction wise is pretty annoying for the customer experience. I'm sure that many of you did come into the airport when we had our very large terminal improvement project over the last few years. And things are everywhere, construction, it's a mess. And so really trying to get a lot of that done while no one's in the space, and we can do it quickly and hopefully without interrupting the passenger experience. So a new development that we have, I'm sure many of you have seen, and AED was very helpful to us in this. We are bringing in a company called Group Orion. They're actually going to be leasing from us 122-acre development called our Aviation Center of Excellence with some other surrounding pieces of property. It's actually on the site of our north-south runway that was decommissioned a few years back. And they are actually planning to start development as soon as this spring. We are still working with the FAA to get some final approvals, and then the lease will certainly have to go to City Council. But after that, they can start developing. It's poised to be a flagship really for our aerospace industry here in New Mexico and Albuquerque. And so we're very excited to be able to bring this tenant in. They are in the satellite manufacturing space, and we think that they're going to have a significant impact on our local economy as well. They plan to bring in at least 1,000 jobs and are planning to build over 4 million total square feet of space. Show some pictures next. This is just kind of a picture of the building and the campus. It's pretty massive, as you can probably tell. And the next picture, I like to kind of call it looks a little bit like a Google campus to me. I've never really been to Google, but in the pictures that I've seen, just super cool. I think it'll be a great new front door to our city. So another thing that some people do not often know about us is that we also operate what's called the Foreign Trade Zone out of the Albuquerque International Sunport that comes from the Port of Albuquerque. And that started initially with an actual 60-acre plot of land. But now we actually have an alternative site framework on that encompasses much of all of central New Mexico. And so basically the foreign trade zone actually allows companies to legally avoid paying US customs and duties. And if you're interested in learning more about the FTZ, you can go to abqftz.com. There's some more information there. But it could be very useful to companies that are importing and exporting goods across the world. Like to talk about some of our upcoming construction projects because there's always construction happening at the Sunport. My light went out here. Let me see if I can get it back on so you guys can see my face. All right. So one project that I'm very excited about is our TSA relocation and concession redesign. We have had our current TSA checkpoint for about 20 years now, and our concession program has been around for about 15 now. So it's about time to update them. Our leases and contracts are almost up of their term. So we will be doing some actual space redesign there, and we'll bring in new entities to serve the public with new retail, new food and beverage opportunities. So please stay connected with us on that. We're going to have a lot of information. We'd like to include a lot of new local vendors into the program. So please keep updated. We're going to have purchasing and procurement information coming out about that soon. That project is starting this year. We hope that will close out in 2023. It's a pretty hefty project. It's going to cost us about $40 million. We also, I don't know the last time you all have been in a passenger boarding bridge, our jetways, but this picture here is actually a picture of our newly renovated jet bridge. So we've done some structural assessments on those, and luckily we're just gonna have to renovate them. We don't need all new bridges, but that project, pretty expensive. It's about $1 million a bridge. So that's a $24 million project. We also are going to be adding an inline baggage system. So I'm not too sure how familiar you all are. When you hand the airline over your bag, where does it go, right? It gets screened by the Transportation Security Administration to make sure that there's nothing bad in there. And so the system that we have now is pretty antiquated. It's not very efficient. And so airports all across the country have really modernized those systems and actually put them kind of all in one space and in one system that moves. And so we're going to be doing that here in Albuquerque too. So I'm very excited about those upgrades. That'll be about a $23 million project. We estimate that that'll be done in 2024. And then lastly, we are still looking forward to bringing back international and putting that back into our name officially. Obviously, with the times as it is now and our passenger count being so low, it's not happening right away, but we still hope to be able to add a new federal inspection station, maybe closer to 2024, but we'll have to monitor that as we go. On the airfield, we also always have upcoming construction projects. There's never a dull moment out on the airfield. So we just, about a year ago, we did taxiway echo rehab phase A. Now we're on phase B of that. We just started it. That's a picture actually of the taxiway rehab that's happening. It's pretty cool to go out there and watch them tear up asphalt and put down concrete, especially on these really thick aprons and taxiways. We're also going to be doing a West Terminal apron reconstruction late this year. One cool thing about a lot of these airfield projects is actually we were able to really accelerate them. And so we have these projects that are all coming up pretty quickly, and a cargo ramp expansion as well. Next slide. And then I'm just about to finish up here, but I want to talk a little bit about some trends. So one of the things I want to mention is air cargo really became invaluable during this pandemic. And so we actually basically remain steady year over year. We have about 130 million pounds of cargo that we're moving here at the Sunport, which was of course a stark comparison to the decline in passenger traffic. And, you know, airports and airlines really played a significant role in moving important cargo, right? Like vaccines and PPE across the United States. So that's something that we were very proud of this year. And one of the reasons that, of course, we could not close down. The industry projections right now are showing that a faster recovery of leisure travel rather than business. So we can have a conversation about that because you guys are the business travelers we want to see traveling again. And of course, you know, those leisure destinations will see that coming back, and the availability of upcoming direct flights and all the options is of course going to depend on us all traveling. And I believe that is it. But basically, so in conclusion, we do have a substantial economic impact on our state, but COVID has had a dramatic impact on us. We do have a strong plan for recovery, so I am excited about years to come for the Sunport. And then hopefully you can tell there will always be development and construction at the Sunport. People hate when I say that, but it is true. And come visit us. TSA wait times are really, really short. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. Amazing, amazing information. I'm a little overwhelmed. It's wonderful, but this is exactly the kind of thing that we need everyone in the community educated on and then sharing. So thank you so much, Nyika. So to facilitate for the last 10 minutes or so, some questions, I want to introduce the wonderful Ted Grumblatt with FBT Architects. So he's going to do the work so I can sit back and just enjoy. Growing up in a remote island in the Philippines, Ted learned to appreciate tremendously the positive impact that a beautifully built environment can have. And then he was subsequently drawn to architecture's creative and technical discipline in his education. He's got a bachelor's and master's in this field from the University of New Mexico. So fast forward 25 years later, Ted is now a principal and director of FBT's commercial studio. And he's worked on a number of award-winning projects, including Sandia Resort and Casino, which I cannot wait to go check out, and Sun Healthcare World Headquarters. So Ted, do you have some questions for Nyika?
I do. You can hear me okay? So yeah, that was a wonderful presentation, Nyika and Patrick. It's pretty exciting with what's happening in Albuquerque, and we're actually glad to be a part of it. So the first question here is, where's the Sunport at in their engineering on-call contracts for the airfield?
Where are we at with our engineering contracts? So we're always putting out new on-call opportunities for people. I'm not exactly sure when the next opportunity will be out, but we'll certainly make that publicly available as soon as we're ready to open up a new on-call.
All right. I don't see any other questions, but I'll add a question in here. So, so Nyika, what can local businesses do to help with the Sunport's development?
Oh, thanks, Ted. So that's a great question. I think the biggest thing, as soon as it's safe, getting back in the air, allowing people to start traveling again for business meetings. Zoom has been wonderful. I love it, and but it certainly doesn't quite do it when you need to be in a face-to-face and really meet people. So I think business travel will come back as soon as business demand comes back, and so I just ask that you're patient with us. Airlines really like to play a bit of a chicken and egg game, and they never like to be the first one. So they really want us to prove that demand out first before they give us a flight back. And so as soon as you're ready and as soon as it's safe, please continue to encourage your team to travel.
Great. I don't have any other questions in here. Let's see. One just popped up here. Let's see. Have you seen general aviation or charter flights affected by the COVID pandemic?
So actually, our FBOs, our fixed base operators, who are the ones that actually provide the service for charter flights and general aviation, they have been, I don't think most of them are doing as well as they have in the past, but they are doing just about as well as they were in 2019. So their numbers are looking pretty good. I think if people have the ability to travel non-commercial right now, it seems like that's definitely the trend.
All right. Yeah, I was going to say, Patrick may add to that. And then I do have one hand raised from board member Al Vio. So we might let him in as long as he promises to be good.
I was just going to confirm what Nika's saying. We do a lot of work at GA airports across the country, and that seems to be a sector that has weathered the storm fairly well, especially for reliever airports like Double Eagle or more urban centered airports. Those reliever airports seem to be doing pretty well weathering the storm.
Yeah.
All right. So how about, are there any plans for the Double Eagle Airport, Nyika? Or Patrick, in your master plan?
Yeah, so Double Eagle actually has its own master plan through the FAA, and there are certainly, of course, plans to continue to grow that airport. It is, based on demand, so we'll have to see demand, but Double Eagle does pretty well. There are a lot of users out there, and so we'll continue to support that facility and grow that facility as demand requires.
Wonderful. How about the Orion contract? Is that a definite contract?
So we do have a formal LOI with Group Orion, and but it has not, as I mentioned, been approved officially. The FAA needs to do some version of approvals. It's not exactly approving of the company, but it's more approving of the space and how it's allocated. And so that still needs to be done. And then the second thing is the local city government, city council, Albuquerque City Council would need to approve that to make it final.
All right. As a second part to that question, what do you anticipate to be the timeline for that?
So, we hope that we will see, I think we're in the final stages of lease negotiations. This is going to be one of the longest leases I've ever done. But we're in the final stages. We're hoping to get the lease to city council in March or April of this year. So hopefully you all, that of course would then be, a public document at the time. So.
All
right. Well, I don't see any more questions, Danielle. What do you think?
Well, I think this was awesome. I'm well, two things. Well, and Beth on our team just posted, and I saw it coming through on my phone that looks like, according to KRQE, by February 11, we no longer have to do 14-day quarantine. So Nyika, hopefully that's really awesome that we'll see a lot more people flying in and out. with all the proper precautions and very safely. I'll be honest, it'd be really nice. I'd love to be able to, you know, pop my family in for the weekend or something, as long as they promise to be good. But
they must have gifted that to us for your webinar, for your first webinar today.
there you go. Absolutely. So yeah, I definitely want to thank you for that. And also, you know, not really a question, but a comment that you have this autonomous disinfecting robot. Do they make like private residential sized ones so that I can just let it roll around the house?
Right, like a Roomba that disinfects. I don't think they have that yet, but I would love that for my house as well.
Darn. All right. Well, I'll bet they're pretty pricey. Well, with that, I want to really thank everybody, first of all, for the whole panel here that decided to be guinea pigs for us. Thank you, Patrick, for joining us and providing expertise on master planning, and Nyika for the great info. And thank you, Ted, for joining in to facilitate and just offer some different perspective. It was wonderful. So for all of our attendees, and we've got a lot of folks still hanging on, you know, we're going to send a link to the program to attendees, as well as a survey. We really want to hear from you all. Did you like this? Did you like the fast pace of it? Do you like the time of day? What other topics do you want to hear about that AED could tease out and, you know, and really have great conversations that connect to economic development topics and issues, just so that we can keep educating folks about the great assets in our region. So tell us what you thought. Thank you. Have a wonderful week. And with that, we're right at 2:15 and we're signing off.